Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the a Kansas Hoops podcast via the Field of 68. I'm your host, Sam Lance, and I'm joined by Jackson Bezdek once again. And Bez, the Kansas basketball season is here. Late night was this past Friday. And of course, we have Big 12 Media Day and the Arkansas exhibition this coming week. So we have a lot to go over today, including a little bit of a late night recap, recapping Media Day, and then kind of previewing the next week for KU here. So let's go ahead and get into it. Episode 42 of the a Kansas Hoops podcast. Welcome back to the y'all. And first things first, we're going to do a little late night recap. Kansas opened their season with late night this past Friday. And let's just kind of talk about the game itself. Kansas scrimmaged for 20 minutes. And, I get it. There's a scrimmage. There's not a lot to take away from a scrimmage game, especially an inter-squad scrimmage. But one thing that did catch my eye is Flory Badunga, Jackson. He finished with a game-high 13 points on 6 of 7 shooting, and everybody was throwing him up lobs. I mean, even there were a couple times that there was no chance in hell he could reach it, and Kansas was still throwing it up there for him. So I think that's encouraging. But what do you just think, Bez, about Flory kind of showing who he can be this year at late night?
Yeah, definitely. I think what I look for in these kind of exhibitions, because as you said, like defense was not played at a high level in this scrimmage whatsoever. But I like looking for guys, especially the newer guys, like how are they moving? And you can watch Flory for 5 seconds and you can tell that, oh, he moves a little bit differently. You got to see the raw athlete that you and I had been talking about all of last year leading up to it. All of that was on display. And it was just cool. I mean, game high points for the incoming freshman, got everybody excited. And, I think that's kind of the point of the game is show off the new guys, show off the new 5-star you just got. And yeah, throw him some lobs that make him show off a little bit.
I thought it was funny. I think it was Barstool KU who tweeted this, but they were like, just go ahead, Bill, and play Flory 50 minutes per game.
Yeah.
Just go ahead and do it, And I don't think that will happen. Obviously, Flory is kind of slated to be that backup big, maybe even relieving KJ at the 4 spot. But yeah, I mean, it's a good sign for what is to come of Flory, his performance at late night. You said it, Bez. He's just an athlete. And
Yeah.
both of the KU freshmen are athletes. Like Rakis, I don't know if you saw his dunk during this game, but he had a pretty nasty in-game dunk. And then in warm-ups, like he was throwing lobs to himself that were bouncing above the rim, and he was just going up there and getting it and slamming it down. So, yeah, the two freshmen, uber athletic. That was kind of one of my big takeaways. And I also kind of liked what I saw from KJ Adams. He was kind of hitting that little, drive to the paint, turnaround jump shot. I don't know if that was something that was really in his bag last year. He kind of had those push shots, of course, dunking the basketball, but now we're seeing a bit of a turnaround jumper from KJ, which I think could be in a very, very effective move for him.
Yeah, I hope that's a consistent shot that he can actually make, just something to add to his arsenal. I know with a lot of the new additions that we got over the offseason, people might be hoping that maybe Self finally brings KJ off the bench this year. I personally, it's not going to happen. I don't want it to happen either. I feel like his IQ and his comfortability in Bill Self's offense and his being the anchor on the defensive end, I think he's going to be one of the most valuable players Kansas has this year, even more than most of the offseason additions we had. And you can still you can tell that he's been working on his game. I think that was very apparent in the scrimmage. This isn't the same KJ Adams from his sophomore year. Like this is a way more developed basketball player. And I think people need to be a little bit more excited for the season that KJ is going to have.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. KJ, I believe, is going to be a draft pick next year. I mean, that's
I agree.
what I've been saying. I think he has a chance to have a type of year to do that, to put himself in position to get drafted. But we got a couple other people to talk about from the scrimmage, and that was Diggy and Noah Shelby. Both knocked in a couple of triples. And Bez, you were telling me that your friends just could not stop talking about Diggy.
Yeah, I keep hearing everyone was talking about Diggy after the scrimmage, and even some of my friends who were like at the media day and got to interview a couple of the players, and like you did, a lot of they asked about Diggy because people love Diggy. I don't know what the deal is. We're not on campus anymore. I don't know what's going on there, but apparently everybody loves Diggy. And Bill Self has said that Diggy is easily the hardest worker on the team, that he's one of the best on ball defenders on the team. At late night, he was getting his shots up, to say the least, but he was open off the bus. I don't know. I think he's going to be a really electric guy off the bench. There's even like Remy Martin buzz with this kid, where he's going to be off the bench, being a giant offensive spark plug. I mean, he averaged 20 a game. Like this is very much something that could happen. And I wasn't super bullish on it, but the word on the street is Diggy Coit is the man.
Yeah, I mean, everybody loves Diggy. I thought what was funny, this was from Media Day, but somebody asked a question about David Coit, and Self is like, who? Like, who are you? Oh,
David
Diggy. Like Diggy. Yeah, I didn't even know
McCormick?
his first name, and started talking about Diggy. So I thought that was hilarious. But yeah, Diggy Coit, I think will be big this year. Flory obviously the big game, KJ with the big game, Rakis showing off what he can do. There's a lot to like about the late night scrimmage there in Allen Fieldhouse. And another thing that I really took away from late night was just Bill Self addressing the crowd. I think what he said here was really cool. Basically, he was addressing the fans at this moment, but he was basically like, the players come to Kansas because of y'all. And the reason why we're good is because of the players. So he really just kind of took the time to thank the Kansas faithful. And then he closed by saying, last year, I know it wasn't, exactly what we wanted, but this year, Kansas will be playing for a national championship. And of course, the crowd had a huge, huge roar after he said that.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's cool to see. He's right. I mean, the mystique of Allen Fieldhouse only goes as far as the energy of the students that year, and I don't there's it's an amazing thing that it's been able to last as long as it has and hasn't dropped at all. I mean, it's been the best environment in college basketball for a few decades running now, where you're going to get not a consensus answer, but a lot of the people who are involved in college basketball are going to tell you Allen Fieldhouse is the place. And there's a history and an aura when you walk in that you feel just because you know how many legends have walked through those doors. But none of that matters if the students aren't bringing it 110% every game. And by every game, I literally mean every
Every game.
single game. There isn't a place where you're going to go to an exhibition match that doesn't even count for the record and it's going to be sold out and students are going to be trying to reach 120 on the decibel bar every single night. And it's just amazing that we're in 2024 and it is not slowing down and it won't as long as Bill's here.
Yeah, that late night crowd, honestly, it was probably since I have been here one of the most electric late night crowds that Kansas had. They were giving out the little glow bars where you could
Mm,
just press a button and
yeah.
it was like it looked really cool for the performances and stuff like that. And Bez, we can't talk about late night without talking about Lil Jon. I mean,
Oh,
come on. I honestly thought that Lil Jon was awesome. Like he's one of those people that you don't realize how many songs he's in
right.
because he's
Yeah.
just kind of like your ad lib guy, just kind of
Yep.
screaming. Like he starts playing all these songs. I'm like, oh yeah, Lil
Oh, yeah.
Jon is in that
Yep.
song. Like it was a crazy night seeing Lil Jon there and performed. And he had his own little KU jersey with
Nice.
John on the back. So I thought that was pretty cool. And it looks like the players had fun. I was just watching kind of the video board while the concert was going on. Zeke Mayo was showing off his dance moves. It was a good time, but let's get to some actual news, Bez, from Bill Self after the game. I think the first thing that we kind of need to address is Hunter Dickinson. He has a sprained foot per Bill Self, and he should be okay in a couple of days. That's why Dickinson was a little limited in that scrimmage, but I don't think it's any reason to panic. It sounds like it's just a day-to-day thing, and Hunter Dickinson should be good to go coming up here for the Arkansas exhibition and to start the season.
Yep. Not concerned too much. We'll be interested to see how many minutes he plays against Arkansas. If he plays a normal amount of minutes, then we're good to go. And there's absolutely no issue at all. Even if he does play limited minutes, I still wouldn't be concerned about it. But that's just something to monitor for the exhibition game. And I don't know if I doubt we even see a limp or really anything like that. I'm sure he's okay.
The other news was kind of centered around Jamari McDowell. Bill Self said that he talked to Jamari's family and basically kind of said, let's see how this plays out in terms of him, redshirting or not. Bill Self said that right now he has the advantage over Rylan Griffin and AJ Storr. And, he admits that might not be the case in a couple weeks as they, kind of get adapted. But I don't know. I think we're kind of. He said that Jamari's probably too good of a player to redshirt, and he kind of hinted that there will be one redshirt this season. So right now, I think that's kind of up in the air on who that will be. But I'm leaning it's not going to be Jamari McDowell just from these comments from Bill Self.
I'm leaning it's not going to be anybody. He does this every year. He's like, well, I'm a redshirted guy. Just like, no, you're okay. You either going to do it or don't do it. I don't know even if him playing in the exhibition games will make that a factor or not.
He
If
can
if
play.
he's
He
a
can play
redshirt,
both exhibition games. Those don't count. So any
right,
redshirt
right.
can play in those.
But like if you see him play a lot of minutes in an exhibition game, you can kind of be like, those might be his minutes this year. But I don't see it. Like I agree with you. Jamari's great. He's a great piece for this offense. Like it it's up to him, of course, honestly. Like there is a lot of depth on this team, realistically. But Bill knows he's Rylan and AJ are going to be ahead of Jamari before the ball tips off this season. We all know that. All right. He's just saying that to give Jamari some love because he's a returning player. Could have ported last year, but he didn't. So it's a conversation between Bill and Jamari. Bill's got to be straight with him about how much he's going to play, and Jamari's got to be straight with him what his future plans are. So that's gotta be a conversation that needs to happen if it hasn't happened already. But I would like to see you can never have enough depth. Like
Yep.
don't do this. We saw what happened last year. Don't do this whole thing or like, oh, let's redshirt a guy. We got enough dudes. You never can have enough dudes. Let the kid play. And in the new portal / people leave for the draft at the most random times era anyway, there's no reason to redshirt. Like use up his 4 years. He's probably not going to use them all anyway at Kansas.
Yeah, I think Jamari. We forget how good he really was last year. Like in the times that he
We
was,
wanted him to be the first guard off the bench for a period of time.
he did. He did. We definitely did. I mean, he played really well against Tennessee. Like he played what, like 20-ish
That's exactly what I was thinking. That Tennessee
against
game, man.
Tennessee. Like Jamari McDowell, he's a good player. I don't think he will redshirt. I think he'll probably be that 10th-ish man for Kansas this year, but be on the lookout for him to produce a little bit. The last thing we want to talk about from late night, it was my first time seeing the Allen Fieldhouse renovations, Bez, and all I have to say is, oh my gosh, like Allen Fieldhouse did get a lot better. I know that there are a lot of fans, just seeing on Twitter that were not really in for these changes. But if they went to late night, Bez, I guarantee you all that has been wiped away because that building is absolutely insane now. I mean, the circus font on the court, the
Yep.
video boards on the side, like it looks more modern. It just the jumbotron, it's huge.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
huge, Bez. Like
That's
I'm
what I was
all
gonna
for it.
say.
I'm all for it.
I obviously haven't seen it yet. I've only seen the pictures and the videos. It doesn't look like surface level. I look at a picture, it doesn't necessarily look a whole lot different, but the video board looks bigger. I'm like in general, this is probably something that the changes won't hit you until you're actually there. Especially with as many games as I've gone to there, like I will definitely be able to notice the differences. And I'm super excited, man. I was super happy they kept the student capacity the exact same.
Yep.
I was kind of sketched out about the renovations. You don't mess with tradition. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. You don't mess with greatness. It kind of was a little broke though. I mean, it was probably you
An old building.
look around the conference. Like a lot of like Baylor's got a really hot new arena. Texas Moody Center when they were still in the Big 12. Like a lot of these programs are ramping up, and you don't want to get left behind. And kids born 10 years from now aren't going to care about Kansas basketball history. I'm sorry, they're probably not. Like you gotta go with the times. But if they would have taken like capacity did shrink, and if student
Yeah.
capacity would have shrunk with it, that's where people are going to get outraged about. And that's what I was saying earlier. Like, that's why Allen Fieldhouse is still so good. You cannot limit the students. Like, there's still games where we're kicking out students because there's too many already in there. You cannot like mess with that. That's the magic going right now.
Yeah, I totally agree. My main takeaway, Bez, from all the renovations was the sound system. I
Mm.
mean, that thing is booming. Like
Yep.
I like you would have, Snoop Dogg in Allen Fieldhouse. It was a great time. It didn't sound good. It didn't sound good at all. Like that concert, what
Right.
just sounded awful. Like it did.
Even the few after Snoop were bad too. Like
Like
it was the audio mixing was not good.
Lil Jon, that set that he performed, it was loud, it was clear, like it
Yeah.
wasn't distorted, like it was
Yeah.
awesome. And I remember whenever he was out there and I was still up in the media section, like he's playing whatever song and the video board is like literally shaking because of how loud it was. Like that sound system is no joke. I can't even imagine what it will be like at an under 4 minute timeout with the hum playing. I mean, it's just going to be insanity this year because that sound system's no joke. It's no joke.
That's gonna be I don't know when I'm gonna make it to a game, but I'm going to, and that I'm like video board, sound system, and then I'm gonna walk around too because a lot of that money went, downstairs, donors club, all that good stuff,
The
and I'm sure that stuff
concourses,
is
like the
like
floors in there are so nice. Like they're
I bet
just
it's and I
extremely nice.
bet the NIL donor stuff, like that stuff is 100% extremely next level right now. Like extremely next level. And that's another big part of it too. Like you gotta treat your donors even better nowadays than you did in the past because they're funding your team at this point essentially. So you gotta give them, all of the bells and whistles that I'm sure in there. I bet it's so grossly ridiculous.
Yeah, it was pretty insane. Just walking around. I thought the funniest moment was I was walking out like it late night's over, everything, and I'm walking through the concourse, and there's this guy like literally with a like rag, and he's going on the floor, and like every single little like smudge that was created, he was wiping it off, and I was just like, it's like go you man, like you do
It,
you,
that's
keep
a
it
tough
clean.
gig.
I thought that was hilarious, but. We also had Kansas Basketball Media Day last week. I believe that was last Monday when that took place. And Bill Self players, they said some interesting stuff. So that's kind of what we're going to go over next. And the first thing, Bez, Bill Self, he says this year's team has options. And
Yeah.
boy, do they.
Yeah. I mean, he's got what, five different starting lineups he can play with. He's probably only going to use two or three of them, but he has a lot of options because right now, Rylan Griffin, who just transferred in from the number two team in the country, who played in the Final Four game, and a team that he started for in that game is currently coming off the bench for Kansas. So that's kind of what he means when he's like, well, we have some options. No, you have three starting lineups that you can use that would be top five in the country, regardless of who's out there. Like this top 7, 8 is ridiculous.
It is. The biggest thing, kind of what he said in regards to this is Bill Self said that last year felt a lot like USC to him. Like Kansas wasn't competitive late. They got blown out in the second round by Gonzaga. And Bill Self, he said, we needed to improve physically, athletically, and Kansas did. I mean, there's more shooters, there's more athletes. Like this might be one of the most athletic teams that Bill Self has had, maybe ever to be completely honest with some of the athletes on the back line. But yeah, if you remember after the USC loss, Self was super disappointed and he said the same things. Like we got to get more athletic, we got to get bigger, we got to get better shot makers. And what did Bill Self do? He added Remy Martin, he added Jalen Coleman Lands, he added all these guys out of the portal, and Kansas went on to win a national title. Could history repeat itself, Bez? Could history repeat itself?
I mean, it's certainly pretty eerie how similar the two were, and that was, kind of the buzz around the fan base after the Gonzaga game was like, oh, this was USC. Like that's exactly what this felt like. A gut punch in the first half, complete depression in the second half. it was the same, and Bill said the same things, and he's right both times because you get blown out in the tournament. It's pretty easy to be like, oh, we're not very big. Let's go fix that. Like it's pretty easy to address your issues when you get blown out. So I don't know if history will repeat itself, but the argument could be made that just straight up roster for roster, this roster is better than the national championship team in 2022. It just is.
Bill's
I
even
mean,
said that during that run, remember he was trying to get, penalties from the NCAA.
yeah,
Like he didn't
yeah,
even think that team could really do it. Like he
yeah.
wasn't thinking that at the time.
Oh, that year
Could
had
he
some B plot and C plot to it. Like there was some stuff going on.
Yeah, I believe just from the vibe of like the Kansas fans, people will probably be disappointed if Kansas isn't playing in the Final Four. Is
100%.
that is that fair?
I think it's fair. It's not Final Four or bust because it's never blank and bust when you have Bill Self as your coach and Kansas as your school because it's always championship or bust every single year. So you can't be like Final Four or bust because it's like, well, I mean, if we lose the Final Four game, everyone's gonna be just as pissed. So it's not really that. But I do think like this is I don't know, man. It's hard to say like this team's got to make the Final Four because like what more does Bill Self like we're not far enough away from the championship game for like Bill Self revenge season, right? Like where he kind of locks into a different mode. I don't know if we're there yet. I'm a little worried. I think this reminds me most of the 2010 team that loses to Northern Iowa in the second round. That team was probably the most talented team Bill had straight up. A lot of those championship guys were still there. KJ and Dewan still there. Like that's kind of what it seems like to me. But just saying,
Kansas
it's always
needs to
championship or
break.
bust. That's my point.
Kansas needs to break the number one in the AP poll curse. It needs to be broken this year. Because if
Yeah, I
you
mean
don't
that's a
know,
first weekend curse. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Bill Self has never made it at Kansas, I believe. He's never made it out of the first weekend whenever Kansas is a preseason number one AP team.
You're
I
correct.
think that whole conversation needs to get put to bed this season. Put
I'm
it to
fine
bed.
with that. If he's in his Michael Jordan phase where he needs to make up things to get him motivated, do that. Do it because the team I'm talking about was one of those teams that did make it out of the second round and was number one in the country. Like that's why what it seems like to me. This team is so freaking loaded, Sam. This team is so loaded. A first weekend exit would be such a disaster. Like Tony Bennett retiring, Jay Wright retiring. Those are Bill's buddies. I wouldn't love if Bill's like, man, I can't get out of this first weekend anymore. That's not a feeling I want to live with over the summer, Sam. It's not one I want to live with over the summer. Get to the freaking second weekend.
It won't happen, Bez. The curse is
Nah,
getting
we'll be
broken
fine.
this
We'll be
year.
fine.
It's all
Yeah.
good. It's all good.
We're
All right. Another thing that I thought was pretty key that was said during media day is DeJuan Harris. And if you haven't seen our last episode, episode 41, it is all the player interviews that I was able to conduct during media day. So if you haven't seen that, go check it out. But one of the biggest things DeJuan Harris said during that is, nowadays, whenever Kansas is, bringing up the ball, he's not the guy that has to do it every time. He says that now, rebound, DeJuan can just run. He can just run up the court because you got guys like KJ, you got guys like Diggy, you got guys like Zeke Mayo, Shaq Moore whenever he's healthy. You got guys who can bring up the ball. And I think just alleviating the pressure off of DeJuan is going to be huge. I mean, you think about last season, he brought the ball up every time and he ran the offense and had to make every play. Like, DeJuan was the person who made the play. He's not going to have to do that this year. And I think because of that, we might see a pretty incredible jump from DeJuan, not just offensively, but defensively to be able to really lock in on that end of the court.
The worst part about what happened to DeJuan last year is we had this conversation before the season with El Marco. We were like, hey, this is great. El Marco's probably going to start. They can split it, bringing up the court. That's going to give DeJuan and it didn't hit for El Marco. Jamari's not a guy who could bring it up. Furphy wasn't really that guy. So we tried to shoehorn KJ into doing it. KJ wasn't quite ready for it at the beginning. So it just went back to DeJuan and right back on his shoulders. It was just his on-ball defense, to your point, has lacked the past couple seasons because of his ball handling and offensive load that he's carrying right now. And I think Kansas is going to need a little bit of lockdown defense out of Dajuan Harris this year because there's a lot of very quick guards in the Big 12, especially on teams that aren't necessarily awesome. And those are guys that can beat you. And you're like, how the heck did we lose to UCF again? They're 11th in the conference. Well, they got some quick guards that we couldn't stay in front of. So we're going to need that out of Dajuan. To your other point, Hunter's the only guy I don't want to see dribble the ball up, and Flory when he's in. I mean, seriously, AJ Storr can do it. Rylan Griffin can do it. Maybe not Rylan Griffin so much, but like Zeke is like a combo guard. Like he can literally play point guard. Diggy and Shaq Moore, like you said, both can play point guard. Like this isn't a last year situation where El Marco, we tried to make a point guard. Like, no, these guys have already played point guard in Division I Power Five basketball
Years.
for multiple seasons. Like that's a very big deal. Like yes, there's depth, but all the depth has experience. Like now, like we're telling you, it's actually going to happen this year. Dajuan is actually not going to have to bring it up all the time, and he's going to be an awesome on-ball defender.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with that is Self said that KJ is one of those guys who has been bringing up a lot and he loves his playmaking ability. And guess what? So do I. I absolutely love that. Like if you think back to the Jalen Wilson team from 2 years ago, like Jalen was that guy. Like he was bringing the ball up all the time, making plays. I think we'll see a lot of similarities this year with KJ. And I think with that, we've always kind of talked about KJ's rebounding a little bit. I think with that in his mind, like, hey, I can go grab this ball and go take it right up the court and get into our offense. I think that'll allow him to kind of have that mindset to rebound the ball a little bit more this year. So, yeah, just all that is very encouraging signs for Kansas. A lot of options, a lot of ball handlers, a lot of dudes who have played a lot of minutes in college basketball. It's a lot to like. But, Bez, now it's time to be a little sentimental. All right.
Mm.
We got three guys who are playing their last season at Kansas. Two of them, Dajuan Harris and KJ Adams, who have been program guys throughout this whole thing. And then, of course, Hunter Dickinson will be done. And then Zeke Mayo, Shaq Moore, and Diggy Coit, all going to be done as well, but they're only here 1 year. I want to start with Dajuan Harris because this is a guy that has had a background that wasn't great, and Bill Self took him in. He was an academic redshirt his first year, and now Dajuan Harris is a national champion. He is perceived to be one of the best point guards in the entire country, and I'm gonna be sad whenever he's gone, Bez. Like I am. This is the last year of Dajuan Harris, and I think people should really, really appreciate that.
I think he's the last of a dying breed too, man. I mean, he's 4 year starter, 5 year point guard. Like he guys like that don't come around anymore to big programs like Kansas, where like Dajuan was never a guy that was going to be a draft pick or anything like that. But there was also never a question of who was going to run Kansas's offense. And that's such a unique position to be in. But those are Bill Self's favorite players. Like Sharon Collins to me comes to mind, where like Sharon was never going to the league. He just wasn't. But he was going to be one of the best point guards in the country for Kansas every single year. 4 year guy, played as a freshman, was also huge in the championship game as a freshman. Sharon was like, I just think this new world of college basketball, man, I can't see someone coming and starting in one spot for 4 years at a spot like Kansas. So all the flowers to Dajuan. His story is, I mean, absolutely incredible. Just everything with, CB's family and him barely even making it to KU. Like there's just go look into it if you haven't. I'm sure a lot of us, we know about it. But yeah, Dajuan's one of the most beloved Jayhawks ever. I mean, enough said. Probably not going to be a Raptors guy, but a guy that you won't forget ever.
I don't know about that, Bez. A second title could
A
do it.
second title for sure. A second
Could do it.
title, absolutely. That's unprecedented territory right there.
I think the biggest thing that Dajuan said, he basically said, Bill Self changed my life. And I think that's very cool to kind of see that and him to kind of reflect that sentiment. And, he's put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in this program. KU is his family. And if you think about it, KU has brought in a ton of other guards. And Dajuan at any point could have been like, like
Mhm.
I'm out. Remy's here. I'm out. I'm not doing this. but no, he stuck with it.
Beat them all out,
New
Sam.
year.
We literally beat them all out. Bring on the 5 stars, Bill. I'll beat them out in practice. Like that's why we love Dewan. It doesn't matter. He's bringing the ball up. He's the guy. He's the alpha.
Yeah. And KJ too, I just want to give quick thoughts on him. Obviously he lost his mother last year, and he's gonna be putting his blood, sweat, and tears in this Kansas team too this season. He's another guy. He's just a program guy. I'm gonna be very, very sad whenever KJ leaves as well. He's one of my favorite players I think that I've ever seen at Kansas. So just wanted to give a little hat tip to Dewan and KJ. And of course, Hunter Dickinson, of course, for everything that he's done for this program as well. Yeah, just getting a little sentimental, guys. I'm sorry. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
yeah. Dude, it's sad. Like every year people leave, man. Every year people leave. It never ends. And I don't know if, when the next guy that's going to hit as hard as Dewan's going to hit. Like I'm telling you, like that speech is going to be really emotional. Whole field house is going to be in tears.
Oh
And I
no.
just I just don't know. Like there's going to be guys that stay for 4 or 5 years, but I don't know if they're ever going to be as important as Dewan was to Kansas and that bring a ring. Like there's just so much to love about Dewan. Like that night needs to be cherished because that might be a moment we not get for a long time.
Yep, I agree. But we can't get too sentimental now because there's still a whole season ahead. We will get to watch these guys play the end of their careers. So let's not get too sentimental now. A couple more things before we get into the under four timeout. Just a couple quick hitters. If you haven't seen the interview, Flory Badunga, I asked him to describe Bill Self in 2 words, and he said smartass. And I thought that was just absolutely hilarious. He went on to say, that he likes his personality and that kind of aspect about him, but definitely a funny 2 words to use.
Could I add that he could have potentially meant smart and an ass?
Nah, he meant smartass.
You
Come on.
think? You
Oh
said
yeah.
2 words. You said 2 words. Well, he's
Bill
smart and he's also an ass. Like I'd believe that.
Bill Self is a master of press conference sarcasm, and I'm sure that he is a master of it with his players as well. So, Flory,
I sure hope he
I
doesn't
hear you.
see that. You're gonna get Flory sprints in practice, Lance. Way to go, bud. Flory's got 10 up and backs because
It's
you had
already
to
out there from last episode. It's out of our hands. He said it. It's out of our
he
hands.
already ran for it.
Well, another quick 2 things. Michael Swain, my old boss at 24/7 Sports, he had 2 really good stories on how Shaquille Moore and Diggy Coit ended up becoming Jayhawks. So I'd give those a look if you're interested there. But yeah, that's all we have for you to kind of recap late night, recap media day. We will see you guys at the under four for a very quick recruiting update and kind of just talking about what's going on next week. So stay tuned with us, y'all.
If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM Sportsbook. We are going to be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 throughout the year. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use bonus code FIELD, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. The best part, all you need to do is deposit and bet $10 of your own hard-earned money to be eligible. Here's how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using that bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure that you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. BetMGM is going to have some fun offers available throughout the NBA playoffs. Bet insurance tokens, odds boost, and what I love, a nice parlay boost or two from time to time, as well as a ridiculous array of player prop bets for any sport that you could possibly imagine betting on. BetMGM is and always will be the king of the prop bet. So go download the BetMGM app, use the bonus code FIELD, and sign up today. And while I've got you, a quick request. The best way to support the Field of 68 content that you get for free is to engage with us. Rate and review the podcast. Like and share the YouTube videos. Tell your friends about us. It all helps in a world where the algorithm is king. And now, back to the show.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Hum. It is time for the under four. And the first thing that we have is a quick recruiting update. I'm just going to fly through this very, very fast. So, with late night, Kansas only had one prospect in attendance, and that was 2026 five-star forward Jalen Montanati. Goes to high school in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He was there for late night, and him and his dad, his whole family, enjoyed that visit. So that's pretty cool to see. A five-star from 2026 there at late night. Another visitor, Mohamed Silla. He is a center from the NBA African Academy, and he is visiting starting Monday of this week. So that's kind of a name to look out for there. Candace is pretty involved, has been going out to see Silla, all that sort of stuff. And Bryson Tiller also came on an unofficial visit. I believe it was last week or the week before. So the class is kind of starting to take shape. Out of the top 100 right now, there's not really many guys who are left on the board. And Kansas has kind of cooled off with a lot of the players who are still available, who they were involved with. Right now, the class that I think Kansas will end up with will be Darren Peterson, Bryson Tiller, and Silla, and possibly Nate Ament could be thrown into that mix if the Jayhawks get him on an official visit. But right now, those are kind of the three that I'm looking at. Some guys that Kansas has been involved with, Isaiah Dennis, he canceled his KU visit for late night. That pretty much tells you right there he's probably not going to be choosing Kansas. AJ Dibansa, still don't feel really great about Kansas' chances there. Sebastian Williams Adams, it seems like Kansas is kind of cooling off a little bit, recruiting him because of guys like Tiller, because of guys like Ament, who are kind of that bigger fish at the four position. And Sebastian Williams Adams is a four. So I'm not really liking KU's chances with that either. And then John Clark, a four-star big man, he visited last weekend, but I really like Houston's chances with Clark. He's from there. He likes Kelvin Sampson and that program a lot. And Houston is looking for a big man to kind of help out with this class. So that's kind of the rundown right now. Again, I'm thinking Darren Peterson, Bryson Tiller, and Silla as the three. Kansas locks up this class, and then maybe a guy like a Mint could be another big fish that Kansas goes after. Sorry for that mouthful, Bez. I'm sorry for that mouthful, but that is the update. Uh,
Wow.
just a couple more things before
I'm
we get
good.
out of here. We have Big 12 Media Day on Wednesday, which I will be at, and then Arkansas exhibition on Friday. I just got my room in Fayetteville for Saturday night today. Friday night, I believe that game is. So I will be there for that game. I'm excited. I'm excited for Kansas, Arkansas. What about you, Bez?
Yeah, it's gonna be great. I mean, self and Calipari, any way you can get it, baby, give it to me. I'll eat it up. I'm definitely gonna watch. Won't care if Kansas loses or not, but definitely gonna watch. Super interesting to see rotations, minutes, lineups. I'm excited to break that stuff down with you.
Yeah, absolutely, y'all. And with kind of these two things coming up, I want you guys to comment down below what you guys want to know in regards to this upcoming season or really just anything surrounding the Kansas basketball program. I'll try to get those questions answered for you guys at Big 12 Media Day and at the Arkansas exhibition. So comment down below, subscribe to the Field of 68 podcast network. We are going to be rolling out all sorts of content this year, especially if I keep getting credentialed for these games. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be giving you guys all of the inside information. So let's do it, y'all.